Hello everyone, thank you for joining this short session about client confidentiality and data protection for law students working in a law clinic. My name is Rebecca Howell and I'm the Head of Clinics Programme at LawWorks. I've previously worked in university law clinics, first as a clinic coordinator and then as a clinic manager. So what are we going to cover in this session? This session will give a very brief overview of the basic data protection rules and requirements, and then we'll move on to look at how those rules apply in a law clinic setting. The rules in the UK in relation to data protection are set out in the Data Protection Act 2018. The DPA 2018 is the UK's interpretation of the General Data Protection Regulation, often referred to as GDPR, which is an EU regulation. This means that although the UK are no longer part of the EU, the data protection rules still exist in the UK and must be complied with. The Information Commissioner's Office, often referred to as the ICO, enforces data protection rules in the UK. They have formidable powers which include awarding significant financial penalties. Well-known examples include British Airways, who were fined £20 million in 2019 for over data security failings, which enabled unauthorised access to be obtained to personal and payment card information relating to more than 400,000 of its customers. EE were fined £100,000 for sending over 2.5 million marketing messages to customers without their consent. There are 7 key principles that govern data protection in the UK. But for this session, we're going to focus on the principle of confidentiality, as this is particularly relevant to students working in a law clinic. Confidentiality is also one of the standards of professionalism included in the Solicitors Regulation Authority, SRA, Code of Conduct. The principles of data protection and confidentiality sit very closely together. Organisations, such as a law clinic, must have measures and policies in place to ensure that personal information is kept safe and secure and not kept in a way that makes it prone to attack, for example, hacking. For your work in a law clinic, it's very important that you're aware of the clinic's policies on confidentiality and make sure you always follow them. So what is personal data? Personal data means data which relates to a living individual who can be identified either A, from that data alone, or B, from that data and other information which is in the possession of, or is likely to come into the possession of, the data controller. Examples in a clinic setting are a clinic might use client reference numbers or matter numbers or client ID numbers, whatever they call them, to make clients less identifiable on things like calendar entries or attendance notes. However, that clinic may also have a password-protected spreadsheet with a note of the client's name and their case or client reference number. The documents alone, such as the attendance notes or the calendar invites, are not enough to identify the client, but taken together with the spreadsheet, this makes the clients identifiable. Data breaches can occur cumulatively, so that's when multiple pieces of information are released by the data controller, which together add up to make someone identifiable. Personal data is much wider than things such as names and addresses, and can also include identity numbers, for example, national insurance numbers, online identifiers such as usernames, location data, and sensitive personal information, which includes genetic data, biometrics such as fingerprints, health information such as GP records, membership of certain groups such as political affiliations or religious groups. All legal practices, including law clinics, will hold a lot of personal information about their clients. It's also important to consider what other people could do with any data that is released cumulatively. For example, a clinic might share a client quote about a case with the client's initials. Later, they share another quote about the same case with the client's first name and general location. So anyone looking through their social media from those 2 posts now has the client's first name, last initial, and location, making them easily identifiable. In order to hold personal data, you have to have a lawful basis for holding that information. The most common basis, and the one relevant to a law clinic setting, is consent. Where an individual has given you clear consent to process their personal data for a specific purpose. In a law clinic setting, if you use an online inquiry form, that will always ask clients to give their consent to the processing of their personal data. If, for example, you're talking to clients on the phone, they will be asked to consent to the use of their personal data in connection with their case. A client will always need to sign a client information agreement or terms and conditions, which will include information about how their personal data will be used by the clinic. So how do data protection principles apply in a law clinic? It's essential that all students working in a law clinic attend all clinic training and induction sessions and thoroughly read the clinic handbook. The training and handbook will set out how the clinic runs and the key policies and procedures. It's really important to remember that the clinic procedures have been designed to ensure that client information is always kept confidential. Students will also be asked to agree to a volunteer agreement, which will include confidentiality principles. To ensure data protection and confidentiality principles are always complied with, students must be mindful of the following. So in relation to storage of data, all client information must be stored securely on the clinic's case management system, for example, Clio, not on your personal computer, phone, or any other device. A lot of clinics use Clio as it is a cloud-based system, so all clinic documents and information can be saved and stored in the cloud rather than on a specific device. Students should never share their login details, either for their device or for the clinic's case management system. You should never send unauthorized emails, WhatsApp messages, or texts containing client information to anyone. Never discuss clinic cases outside of the clinic office or interview room, for example in a cafe or on a bus, as it's very easy for other people to overhear your conversations in that type of environment. Further considerations. If your clinic permits you to make paper notes during a client appointment, ensure they are shredded as soon as possible. If your client appointment is taking place online, it's advisable to use headphones so that other people cannot overhear what the client is saying. Remember, never save any clinic documents on a USB stick. USBs are easy to lose and are not password protected. If your clinic permits you to use your own laptop for your clinic work, make sure your virus protection software is up to date to protect against cyber attacks and hacking. In the event that something does go wrong, what should you do? So it's important to know which member of clinic staff you should report a breach or suspected breach to, as this will need to happen as quickly as possible. The clinic handbook and training/induction sessions should cover this. The organisation may need to report the breach to the Information Commissioner's Office, and that would need to be done within 72 hours. The earlier an incident is reported, the more likely it is that the damage can be limited.